In a CNN exclusive, we're learning that the case may have been essentially doomed from the start, so to speak, by a secret deal. We understand Cosby was charged when a new district attorney was elected in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Well, Cosby's deposition from several years ago was a cornerstone in this case. In it, he admitted to giving sedatives to women that he wanted to have sex with. You remember this. Well, the old DA, former DA, never charged him criminally, and CNN's Michael Smerconish says that's because there was a secret deal struck to make sure that didn't happen. So let's hear about this from host of Smerconish himself, of course, Michael Smerconish. So, Michael, this is your exclusive. This is your deal. How did you uncover this email, and what was in it that stuck with you most?
Well, Christy, what has come to light now is an email that I'm holding in my hands that in September of 2015, meaning this past September, was sent from the former DA to the then DA of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, essentially saying, hey, wait a minute, you remember, we struck a bargain here. In an effort to try and assist the victim, the alleged victim in this case, in her civil case, we agreed not to prosecute Bill Cosby in his criminal circumstances because we didn't think we could meet our burden beyond a reasonable doubt. And so we struck an accord with his attorney and said, we're not going to prosecute you in the criminal case, but he needs to give full testimony in the civil deposition. And of course, Cosby then testifies in the civil deposition. It remains secret for 10 or so years, only recently came to light, and it's on the strength of that deposition that he's now been charged. So picture this, on February 2nd, or whenever it is that they hold this next hearing, there is now the prospect that Cosby's attorneys will call the former prosecutor. He will take the stand, and in accord with this email, he will say, I promised Bill Cosby he would never face this criminal prosecution. And if that happens, the deposition that Cosby then did sit for and give all that testimony theoretically goes out the window. I'll have all the details at 9 a.m.
Yes, everybody, please do watch Michael Smerconish, of course, 9 a.m. right here on CNN. Michael, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Absolutely. Let's bring in CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson now, because, Joey, when I listen to what Michael's saying, it sounds to me as though without this deposition, there's no case, and therefore this is a does it get out of jail free card for Bill Cosby?
That's absolutely right, Christy, is the way I read it, and good morning to you. And so just parsing it out for one moment, I think the first question becomes, can a former DA bind a new DA who makes an agreement not to prosecute? I think the answer to that question is no. If I'm the newly elected DA, I do what is my prerogative. I've been elected by the public, and I'm going to do and enforce the laws in the manner I deem appropriate. This, however, raises a separate question. And the separate question is, to what extent now, it's the only reason we have Cosby in a deposition and we have him on record is because of a commitment that was made to say, you know what, I'm not going to prosecute you, so because I want the victim to have some measure of justice, I don't believe I can prove a criminal case beyond a reasonable doubt, which deals with people's liberty and Cosby's freedom, but civilly, is he liable to you for money damages? Have at it, go do it. The only reason we have his deposition is because the prosecutor said, anything you say, I won't use against you. That's the question here. So can this new DA, if he wants to prosecute, use those statements in the deposition? Remember this, Christy. Two things. In the probable cause affidavit that led to Cosby's arrest and is now leading to his prosecution, the deposition is all in that, okay? So that means that the probable cause was buttressed and supported by that deposition. The actual press release that the DA did, the new DA Steele, has that deposition. Based on newly discovered evidence, they cite the deposition. So the big question, can Cosby be prosecuted on a deposition that he would not have given but for that agreement? I think the answer to that question is no, because you're talking about a constitutional waiver of my right not to testify and my right to a fair trial, both of which would be implicated if a judge allowed this to move forward based on a prior agreement.
Okay,
so this is big news.
Two things. One, as I understand it, this was just a verbal agreement. If not for this email, there's no written documentation of it. And number two, I'm just wondering how common this kind of tactic is.
Number one, in terms of a verbal agreement, you had a verbal agreement by a district attorney who now is going to come in and testify. And, you know, I saw Michael Smirkanich's great in terms of the email and, you know, giving his insight on it. You have a DA who's going to come testify and swear under oath, I had this agreement. And so based upon that, verbal or not, agreements are measured by the intention of the parties. And they're given judicial recognition if both sides acknowledge that this was an agreement. So that's step number one. Number two, in terms of the commonality of it, you know, it may not be that common, but understand that the DA is going to say, based on information I had then, we could not prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt. I wanted, and I very much believed, that the victim deserved justice, so I wanted her to go to civil court. She would not have been able to have her day in civil court had I not entered into this agreement, and COSBY would have never testified had I not entered into this agreement. So based upon me, I allowed the victim to get justice by having COSBY open up and give these remarks. Therefore, you can't now use these remarks against him based upon what I promised, which is that I would never use them at all. And they weren't used. 10 years went by, and then boom, all of a sudden they're revealed. So this is fascinating stuff, Christy. It really is.
It really
It'll be
is.
up to a judge to decide.
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do decide there. Joey Jackson, I always appreciate your insight, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.